The man she loved, the man she trusted for 5 quiet years, had only one secret. But that secret had a name, a face, and called someone else Mom. Welcome back to Mr. Charles Stories, where truth comes wrapped in love, betrayal walks hand in hand with silence, and real life delivers lessons that fiction never dares to write. Before we begin, let me ask you, have you ever thought you knew someone completely, until one detail changed everything? If this story draws you in, do me a favor, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Because today's story isn't just about betrayal. It's about what a woman does when the betrayal looks exactly like her husband. Vionel Cruz had always believed in quiet, not silence. The two weren't the same. She knew how to speak when something mattered. She knew how to argue when needed. But she preferred the peace that came with stillness. The kind of stillness where people didn't pretend, didn't push, didn't lie. They just were. Her life with Draven Lorne had fit into that stillness like a puzzle piece. For 5 years, they had built a rhythm, soft mornings, shared playlists, white ceramic mugs, a shared toothbrush holder that never needed words. Draven didn't bring chaos. He brought calm. He brought plans. He brought structure. He brought everything she thought love should look like. So when she passed the kitchen counter that Tuesday morning and saw his tablet blinking with a location notification, she didn't mean to tap it. Her hands were full. Coffee in one, her phone in the other. The light caught her eye. Your location history is ready. It was probably a work site. Draven was always scouting houses, negotiating property deals. She only tapped it out of reflex. The map opened. A red pin blinked. Her heart paused. An address 22 miles away. Visited twice a week. For 3 years, she stared at the screen. Not once. Not twice. Not on occasion. 2 days. Every week. For as long as they'd been married, her brain scrambled for logic. Maybe it's a supplier, a mentor, a client. Maybe it's some land investment. Maybe. Her stomach told her otherwise. She didn't think. She grabbed her keys. Her heart didn't thud fast. It moved quiet, like someone who didn't want to believe the noise building in her own chest. She didn't text him, didn't ask questions. She drove. The route was unfamiliar. Not her side of the city, not even the kind of neighborhoods Draven typically worked with. This wasn't luxury high-rise land. This wasn't boutique real estate. This was middle class. Small yards, sidewalk chalk drawings, plastic kiddie pools, real life. She parked 2 houses down. Her hands were shaking, and she hadn't realized until she tried to pull her phone out and couldn't keep her grip. The house was cream-colored, simple, and lived in. A tricycle lay sideways near the porch steps. A faded basketball rested near the edge of the driveway. Nothing extravagant, nothing showy. Just a home. She walked up slowly. Her heels crunched soft leaves underfoot. Her breath fogged a little in the cold. 3 steps, a knock, a pause. The door opened, and she forgot how to breathe. A little boy, maybe 5, maybe 6, but she didn't need to ask. Big brown eyes, a dimple on the left cheek, the same lips, the same thick curls, the same posture. He looked like Draven had been cloned and shrunk. The boy tilted his head. Hi. Her mouth opened, but no words came. She couldn't move. Her mind spun with every possible explanation, but none of them erased what her eyes were screaming. Hi, the boy said again, and then turned his head. Mom, someone's at the door. Her stomach dropped even further. The voice that came next hit her harder than the face at the door. Milo, don't open the door without... And then, silence. Salora Breen. Vionel's past stood in the doorway. Salora's eyes locked with hers. The same woman who had once braided her hair on college nights. The same woman who had once cried to her over Draven. The same woman who had disappeared after things got messy. Her face hadn't changed much. Older, yes, but still beautiful, still composed. Her hair pulled back in a quick bun, sweatshirt sleeves pushed up, dish towel in her hand. Salora's mouth moved before her brain could stop it. VNL? And that's when it hit her. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't a stranger. This wasn't just her husband's second family. This was a life built behind her back. With a woman she once called sister, Salora stepped outside and shut the door behind her, gently but firmly, like she was sealing off a life VNL was never meant to see. The air between them was thick, not dramatic, not explosive. It was worse. It was quiet. VNL didn't speak at first. She couldn't. Her mind was racing through memories like pages flung open in a storm. Late-night college talks, whispered secrets, how Salora had once described Draven as too sharp, too calm, too practiced, and then she had sworn she was done with him. That was the last real conversation they had. Until now. Milo, VNL said softly. Salora didn't nod, didn't blink. Is that? Salora crossed her arms. Yes. Her voice didn't carry guilt. It carried surrender. Like this wasn't a bombshell. It was a truth she'd buried under too many failed attempts at denial. VNL's chest tightened. He's 5. Salora nodded. And Draven's son? Another nod. VNL blinked hard, her throat tightening. You didn't think I deserved to know. I didn't know you were married to him, Salora said, her voice shaking now. Not at first. And when you found out, I figured he would tell you. He said he would. A slow breath escaped VNL. He never did. Salora pressed her back to the porch post, eyes looking past VNL like she couldn't bear the contact. I found out I was pregnant after he ghosted me, that final year in school. Remember when I left, I didn't move to start over. I left because I was scared, and he was gone. VNL's voice cracked. He was with me that year. I figured that out later. Salora wiped at her nose with her sleeve. I didn't want to drag you into this. I knew you wouldn't have married him if you knew, and I didn't want to be the reason something good got ruined. You thought protecting me meant hiding a whole child. I thought protecting Milo meant keeping him away from chaos. And you weren't the problem. He was. VNL folded her arms. She didn't argue. Couldn't. She remembered how cold Draven could be when he didn't want to feel something. But he found out eventually, she whispered. Salora nodded. After the paternity test, about a year into your marriage, that nearly buckled VNL's knees. She looked away toward the street, trying to steady her breath. 3 years. 3 years of good mornings, of good-night kisses, of planned vacations, of watching the man she thought was hers, fully, entirely, leave twice a week to see a child he never mentioned. He pays for everything, Salora said quietly. He's not a bad father. He shows up, but he didn't choose to tell me. Salora's voice softened. He chose you, not me. But he didn't choose the truth, VNL said, sharper than she meant to. They stood in silence. I didn't reach out because I didn't want to force something that already hurt, Salora finally said. I figured he'd keep his worlds separate, and that maybe he'd finally be the man you believed he was. That last line landed heavy. VNL swallowed the lump in her throat. Thank you for answering the door. Salora looked at her, stunned. Not everyone would have. Before Salora could respond, the door cracked open again. Little Milo peeked out, holding a toy dinosaur. Mama, can I watch the dinosaur show? Salora glanced between them and opened the door wider. Go turn on the TV. I'll be in soon. Milo grinned and disappeared again. The door clicked shut. The sound echoed inside VNL's chest. It was the sound of a different life closing again in front of her. The drive home was silent, no music, no thoughts she could hold on to. Her hands stayed at 10 and 2, knuckles white. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She sat in the parking garage beneath their condo for nearly 10 minutes before she could move again. When she finally stepped into their home, it was spotless, warm, familiar. The scent of clean linen and eucalyptus diffuser still lingered in the air. Nothing was out of place, except her heart. Draven came home that evening in his usual quiet way. Keys, shoes off, jacket hung. Hey, he said, walking into the kitchen. Sorry I'm late. Milo had a fever this morning, so He froze. Her back was to him. Her hands rested on the counter. The table was empty. No dinner. No wine glasses. Just a woman standing so still, she almost looked like a statue. She turned slowly. I found them. Silence. He didn't say, "Who?" He didn't say, "What are you talking about?" His shoulders just dropped, and that was all the answer she needed. You've been visiting them for years, she said. Still, he said nothing. You have a son, Draven. Yes. Her eyes watered instantly. And you didn't tell me. I didn't want to lose you. His voice was quiet, steady, familiar. The same voice that once whispered, "I love you," into her neck. The same voice that had helped her through 2 miscarriages. The same voice that had held her together. Now, it sounded like a lie. You already lost me, she whispered. He stepped forward. She didn't flinch, but she didn't move either. I didn't know about Milo until a year into our marriage, he said. Salora contacted me, said she needed me to take a test. I did. It came back positive. And you never told me. I wanted to. I tried. She looked at him sharply. I wrote letters, drafted emails. I stood outside our bedroom so many nights just holding it. But every time I imagined your face when I told you, I saw you packing your bags. And instead of giving me the truth, you let me live a lie. I didn't cheat on you. I swear to you, V. Milo was conceived long before we reconnected, but I made the mistake of thinking I could control the damage by pretending it never happened. Her breath hitched. You let me grieve 2 miscarriages while you raised a son with another woman. Tears flooded her eyes now. That made him crumble. I wasn't raising him, he said, pain leaking into his tone. I visited, I paid support, I helped with emergencies, but I was never his full-time father, VNL, because I didn't know how to be one, and I didn't know how to be a husband with that kind of failure hanging between us. She stepped back. He didn't follow. I let you down, he said. No, she whispered. You erased me from part of your life, and I don't know if I can come back from that. She didn't yell. She didn't throw anything. She walked past him, into the bedroom, and when he followed minutes later, she was already lying on her side of the bed. She didn't cry anymore. She just stared at the wall. He laid beside her. They didn't touch, but neither of them turned away. What would you do if you were her? Comment. Truth matters if you believe lies of omission still count as betrayal. Share this story if it made you feel something. More emotional chapters ahead. Stay with us. There were some moments VNL thought she'd prepared herself for, running into an ex-friend at a grocery store, a harsh truth finally surfacing. But nothing prepared her for the moment she stood face to face with Salora. Again, on a porch, with a child in the house who looked like her husband. She hadn't thought about Salora in years. She didn't need to. Their last memory had already done enough damage. College, 6 years ago. They'd lived in a shared off-campus house. VNL was always the quiet one. Kept things neat, left post-its on the fridge when food was running low, washed her dishes. Salora had always been wild, electric. She'd go from deep conversations about world policy to wild laughter at a party in the same hour. Their personalities couldn't have been more different, but their bond was deep. Until him, Draven. He had visited Salora on weekends. VNL barely noticed him at first, too focused on a demanding internship. But she remembered the change in her friend, the tension, the secrets. One night, she asked Salora directly, "You're hiding something. Who is he?" Salora hadn't even looked up from the couch. It's not serious. He's just good company. A lie. And VNL, ever respectful, didn't push. By the end of that semester, Salora had packed her things and left without warning. The goodbye was a text. Things got messy. Sorry I wasn't who you thought I was. No explanation, no closure, just silence. Now, on that porch, Salora was no longer the magnetic party girl. She was worn, strong in a different way. VNL studied her. Messy bun, faded hoodie, no makeup, Not the carefully curated version of the woman she remembered. This was real. This was a mother. And this time, Salora didn't hide behind charm. She stepped into her truth like a storm that had stopped running. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said finally. "Neither did I," Vianel replied. Salora nodded toward the street. "Want to walk?" Vianel hesitated, then followed. They walked in silence down the sidewalk, both women locked in a rhythm that neither dared to break with small talk. Until Salora stopped and sat on a curb near a mailbox. Vianel stood. Salora looked up. "You want answers. So ask." Vianel didn't ask right away. She sat beside her instead, slow, measured. Her voice came low. "Did you ever stop loving him?" Salora blinked. No sugarcoating, no dramatics, just honesty. "But I knew he wouldn't stay." "Why?" "Because I wasn't what he wanted for the long haul. I was who he wanted when he didn't want responsibility." Vianel's throat tightened. Salora gave a bitter smile. "He used to say he liked how quiet you were, said you calmed him down." Vianel glanced sideways. Salora shrugged. "Guess I always knew I wasn't the calm he needed. I was the chaos he played with." That landed hard. Vianel's tone stayed steady. "Then why keep the child?" That hit Salora, but she took it. "Because it was the only part of him I never had to earn." The words lingered between them like smoke. She continued. "I didn't tell him at first. I was scared. I didn't think he'd care. But once Milo was born, he became my reason, even if he looked just like him." Vianel nodded slowly. "And when you told him, he didn't believe me. Thought I was manipulating him. I didn't push. Just asked for one test. One. I told him he didn't have to be involved. But he showed up with a lawyer and had the cheek to ask if I wanted a payout." Vianel's eyes widened. Salora looked down at her fingers. "He changed when the results came back. Showed up quiet, paid support, came around on weekends." "But never told you, did he?" "No." Salora nodded like it confirmed something sad she already knew. "He wanted to be a provider, not a father. He wanted to feel like he was doing the right thing without risking what he had with you. And you let him." "I wasn't protecting him," Salora said, her voice cracking. "I was protecting you." Vianel finally turned to face her fully. "You don't get to say that." "I do," Salora snapped, tears threatening, "because I know how he breaks women. Quietly, in ways they don't see coming. I didn't want to be the wrecking ball that hit your marriage, but I also wasn't going to disappear because he wouldn't face his truth." Vianel's hands gripped her knees. "Do you hate me?" Salora asked, suddenly fragile. Vianel stared at her for a long moment. "No," she whispered. "But I don't trust you." Salora nodded. "Fair." Vianel stood first. "I'm not here to take him from Milo, but I need to understand the life I'm part of." Salora stood too. "He's a good kid. You'll like him if you let yourself." "I already do." That surprised both of them. Salora's eyes softened. "He'll ask about you. He notices everything." Vianel took a breath. "Let him ask." "I'll be honest." Back at the house, Vianel didn't go in. She stood at the edge of the driveway. Salora opened the door and gave her one last look before stepping inside. Vianel watched the door close again, not with anger, but with the kind of pain that made you older in an instant. That night, Vianel stood in front of the mirror after her shower. She wiped the steam away with her hand and stared at her own reflection. She looked the same, but something in her eyes had shifted. Her marriage was no longer the full truth. Her love wasn't unshaken, but neither was she. She wrapped the towel tighter around her chest, walked into their bedroom, and climbed into bed beside Draven without a word. He looked at her, hesitated, spoke softly. "Where were you?" "I saw Salora." Silence. His hand didn't reach for hers this time, and neither of them touched. But this time, it wasn't silence out of fear. It was the silence before a decision. Draven didn't ask questions that night, and Vianel didn't offer answers, but something had cracked beneath the surface. They both knew it. She lay on her side, her back to him, listening to the slow, shallow rhythm of his breathing. Not the deep kind that came with peace. This was the tight-chested sleep of a man carrying something he couldn't put down, even in dreams. She didn't close her eyes. She replayed the boy's voice in her mind. "Mama, can I watch the dinosaur show?" He had said it like it was the most natural thing in the world. And yet every syllable stabbed her with a quiet reality. She wasn't his mama. But the man she loved was his daddy. Morning came with no alarm. Just the sunlight crawling up the walls and the clink of Draven's spoon against the ceramic bowl in the kitchen. She walked out in a robe, hair still wet from the shower. He looked up, and then down again. "I made coffee," he said. "I don't want coffee," she replied, calm. They sat across from each other in the kitchen, like two CO workers preparing for a presentation neither wanted to give. She spoke first. "I want to know everything." He didn't look surprised. He reached for his cup, took a sip, then nodded. "It started before us," he said. "You already know that." She nodded. "I was young, careless. Salora wasn't my girlfriend. She was a situation." Vianel raised a brow. Draven exhaled. "I was trying not to be my father, which ironically made me act exactly like him. You disappeared on her. I told myself she wasn't serious, that she was better off without me. I didn't know she was pregnant. And when she told you?" He hesitated. "I didn't believe her at first. You said she asked for a paternity test." "She did. No drama, just a test. I did it because I wanted to shut the whole thing down. I thought she was looking for money. I was wrong." Vianel crossed her legs, fingers tightening on her lap. "And when it came back positive, I couldn't think straight. I walked around for weeks, feeling like someone hit me in the chest. I wanted to do the right thing, but I didn't know how, so you chose to keep it from me. I chose to delay the fallout. That's not noble. That's cowardly." He looked up at her, eyes hollow. "I know. They didn't yell. They didn't argue. But the quiet was louder than any fight. You grieved with me over our miscarriages," she said, her voice trembling. "And the whole time, you were fathering another child. I wasn't fathering him the way I should have. I showed up with money, toys, drop-ins. I never slept on that couch. I never helped with homework. I wasn't present, Vianel. I was managing guilt." She bit her lip. That stung. Somehow, more than if he had lied outright. "Do you love him?" "Yes." The word came too fast, too solid. Her eyes burned. "You never once thought to introduce us. I didn't want to watch you leave. You watched me cry myself to sleep thinking I couldn't give you a child, while you had a son across town. I hated myself for it. You let me believe I was broken." Draven's voice cracked. "You're not. You're the strongest person I know, and I didn't think I deserved you. I still don't." She stood. "Don't say that like it's romantic. It's manipulative." He stood too, but didn't step closer. "I want to fix this." "You can't fix it." "Then I want to make space for the truth. No more lies." She looked at him, and for the first time in weeks, he didn't look like a husband. He looked like a man stripped bare of every version he'd performed. And in that moment, she didn't hate him. She hated the choice he'd made to be a coward when she'd always stood by him. Later that day, she went back to her studio and pulled out the little memory box she'd once made during their second anniversary. Inside were photos, movie tickets, little notes they had passed to each other. One of them read, "You're the only home I've ever known. D." She stared at it for a long time. Home didn't lie. Home didn't hide. 2 nights later, she asked for a conversation. Draven thought it would be another confrontation, but Vianel was calm. Cold, maybe, but not cruel. "I want to meet Milo," she said. He blinked. "You do? I need to see for myself what part of you lives in him, and what part of you stayed honest." He nodded slowly, and after that she added, "I'll decide what happens next." Draven didn't push. He didn't plead. He simply said, "Okay." The next weekend she followed him in her own car. Same neighborhood, same house, same toy tricycle on the porch. But this time, She didn't knock. She waited while Draven did. Salora opened the door. The look on her face said everything. Draven stepped aside. Vienel met Salora's eyes, and with a breath that carried the weight of 5 years of betrayal, she stepped in. Milo was watching cartoons on the floor, wearing socks that didn't match and a superhero shirt with spaghetti stains. He looked up, didn't smile, didn't frown, just stared. "Hi," Vienel said. "Hi." Draven sat on the arm of the couch. Salora stayed behind her son, hands resting on the back of a chair. Milo pointed at Vienel's purse. "Are you here to take my daddy?" She froze. Salora stepped in. "No, baby. She's just visiting." Milo nodded slowly. "Okay," then looked back at the screen. Vienel exhaled. Kids had a way of cutting right through the fog. They stayed for about 20 minutes. Small talk, a little awkward. Milo didn't say much, but when Vienel crouched to tie his shoe before they left, he leaned into her just a little. And she felt it. Not love, not acceptance, but the start of something. He smelled like peanut butter and cinnamon. He blinked up at her and asked, "What's your name again?" "Vienel, you have pretty hair." She smiled, and for the first time since that Tuesday morning, her heart softened just a little. Back at the car, Draven waited for her reaction. She didn't speak, not until they were almost back in the city. "He's not a mistake," she said. "No," he replied. "He never was. But you were—" He flinched. "But she wasn't done. You were the mistake of a man who chose fear over truth, and I don't know if I can ever call that love again. Have you ever looked at someone you loved and realized you didn't recognize them anymore? Drop a comment. Truth reshapes love. Tap like. Subscribe. This journey is just getting deeper." The second Vienel shut the condo door behind her, everything inside her changed. There was no screaming, no broken glass, only a woman moving on instinct, knowing something she could never unknow again. Her hands didn't tremble this time. Her chest didn't quake. She was past the shock now. What came next would be different. Draven came home just after 8. His tie was loose, briefcase in hand, and the same half-smile he wore after long days flickered when he saw her. But it vanished fast. Vienel was standing in the kitchen, still in her work dress, phone face down, eyes sharp. He didn't need to ask why, not this time. "I went for a drive today," she said. Draven set his briefcase down, gently, too gently. Her eyes didn't move from his face. 22 miles outside the city. He froze. "Nice neighborhood," she added. "Yards with toys, families with routines. Still," he said nothing. She tilted her head. A little boy opened the door. About 5 years old. His breath caught. And then she came out, the last person I expected to see. Draven looked at the floor. "Say it," Vienel said, voice flat. He lifted his eyes slowly. "You found them." Silence swallowed the room. The only sound was the low hum of the refrigerator. "I didn't plan to hide it forever," he said. "I just couldn't find the moment that didn't feel like it would break us." "You had 5 years," she replied. "That's over 1,800 days. You didn't miss the moment. You made a choice. I thought I was protecting you." "No," she said. "You were protecting yourself." He nodded, slowly. "You're right." Draven walked to the kitchen stool and sat down, not to rest, to face judgment. "She told me you found out after we got married," Vienel said. "Is that true?" "Yes, and you kept it to yourself. I tried to tell you. You didn't. I wrote letters. I started conversations I never finished. That's not telling. That's rehearsing." He swallowed hard. "You let me go to bed every night thinking we were partners. But I was living a half-life with someone I thought I knew. I never meant to lie to you. But you did." Vienel sat down across from him. Her knees were locked, hands folded. "I didn't go there to start a fight," she said. "I went because something told me to. A blinking icon on your tablet. I was making breakfast." He lowered his eyes. "And I kept thinking, Not him. Not Draven. He doesn't hide. He doesn't cheat. He doesn't lie. She paused. Turns out you do all three. You're just quiet about it. His jaw clenched. I didn't cheat on you, he said again. Milo was conceived before we reconnected. That's not what hurts the most, she said. It's that you watched me go through loss, while hiding your gain. She stood, and he stood with her. They faced each other, inches apart. If you had told me from the beginning, she asked, would you still have chosen me? His eyes didn't move from hers. Every time. Then why didn't you let me choose you back, fully, knowing everything? He didn't answer. Because they both knew why. He was afraid she wouldn't. And maybe she wouldn't have. But that wasn't the point. The point was that he decided for her. That night, they lay in bed with an ocean of air between them. He turned away first. She stayed facing him. Her heart didn't ache the way it did before. Now it pulsed with something new. The next morning, she stood in the bathroom, brushing her hair, when Draven stepped in behind her. He didn't touch her, just spoke to her reflection. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know. I regret it. She met his eyes in the mirror. What exactly? Not telling you. Thinking you were too fragile for the truth. That's what I regret. She set her brush down. I was never fragile, she said. You were the one afraid of the truth. And she walked out. That weekend, she visited her sister out of town. Took 2 days for herself. No texts. No updates. When she came back, she didn't walk in like she used to. She stood in the doorway, keys in hand, and asked herself the question. Most women avoid when they're too deep in. Is this still my home? She opened the door anyway. Draven was waiting. I want to meet him again, she said. He blinked. Milo? Yes. I want to see him, not just as your son, but as someone I may one day love. A flicker of hope in his eyes. But don't take this as a step back into your arms, she added. This is me facing the truth you refused to. He nodded. No smile, no rush, just understanding. 2 days later, they drove separately. Same street, same house, same child in the window. But Vianelle's eyes weren't searching this time. She knew what was behind that door. This wasn't about discovery anymore. This was about decision. Salora opened the door. Her eyes didn't carry hostility, just caution. She's here to see him, Draven said. Salora nodded. Come in. Vianelle stepped into the house like someone entering a museum of a life she almost had. Milo sat at the kitchen table, drawing dinosaurs. He looked up. You came back. She smiled softly. I did. Are you gonna stay this time? She crouched beside him. Would you like that? He nodded. Her chest burned in ways she couldn't explain. They played a game, talked about his drawings. She helped him find a missing crayon. And when he wasn't looking, she caught Salora watching her. Their eyes met. There was no war in them this time. Just 2 women, standing in the wreckage of one man's fear, trying to build something true, finally. That night, the silence in their bedroom wasn't new, but for the first time, it wasn't empty. It was full of everything they hadn't said and everything that now lived between them. Vianelle changed in the bathroom. She tied her robe, stood in front of the mirror, and stared at herself like she didn't quite recognize the woman looking back. This was the same body that had stood beside Draven through layoffs, miscarriages, expansion projects, anniversaries. The same body that had memorized his scent, his rhythms. But tonight, it didn't feel like she was his anymore. And that realization didn't sting. It settled. She walked into the bedroom, dimly lit by the amber glow of the bedside lamp. Draven was already lying down, book closed on his chest, gaze stuck to the ceiling. She slid under the covers without a word. No friction, no comfort, just stillness. Did Milo like seeing you? He asked softly. Yes. A pause. And you? How did it feel? She exhaled, like seeing something that's already part of your future, whether you're ready or not. He turned his face toward her. Do you hate me? She looked at him, not past him, not through him, Just looked. No, she said. But I don't trust you. His jaw tensed. I'll earn it back. She shook her head once. You don't get to earn trust. You build it. Over time, brick by brick. The same way you destroyed it. He turned his body toward her now, slowly. Like movement might break whatever fragile line they'd settled on. I never stopped loving you. That's not the question. He blinked. Then, what is? The question is, who are you when I'm not looking? He swallowed. That's the version of you I never met. And that's the one I have to learn from scratch. The room held its breath. The kind of pause where couples either reach or retreat. But Vionel didn't move, and Draven didn't push. Instead, he asked, "Can I hold your hand?" She hesitated, then slowly reached out across the sheet. Their fingers touched, gently, not out of romance, but memory, familiarity, loneliness, and something aching to still be known. They lay like that, hands lightly touching, for what felt like forever. She didn't cry. He didn't beg. They just breathed together, one bed, two people, and an ocean of questions between them. Sometime past midnight, Vionel whispered into the dark, "You let fear lead you." "I know, and fear will never build anything worth keeping." He closed his eyes. "I want to be better, then start by being honest. I am now." She pulled her hand back. "I don't need it now. I need it consistently." He nodded into the dark. She turned her back to him and pulled the blanket higher. The next morning, she didn't cook breakfast, didn't set out coffee. She dressed quietly and left a note on the counter. "I need space. I'll be gone for a few days. Don't call. Don't chase." This isn't punishment, it's preservation. 5th. Draven read it twice, then sat down at the dining table and folded it slowly. He didn't call her, didn't text, didn't try to explain, because for once he understood. This time, she wasn't walking away to hurt him. She was walking away to hear herself think. Vionel drove north, 2 hours past the city, back to a lake house her sister once rented out for artist retreats. It was empty now, quiet, trees swaying, birds echoing. She left her phone on airplane mode and sat by the water. For the first time in weeks, she cried, not for the betrayal, but for the belief she'd held so tightly. That love, once chosen, was secure. That commitment guaranteed truth. That loyalty returned itself, but none of it had been true. And now, she had to decide what was. She journaled. She walked the woods. She made tea without rushing. She lit the lavender candle she used to love. And in that slow quiet, something happened. She didn't feel broken anymore. She felt awake. On the third night, she sat by the fireplace and whispered aloud, "He's not the man I thought he was, but maybe I'm not the woman I thought I needed to be either," because loving Draven had made her softer, but staying unquestioning had made her smaller. She wasn't angry now. She was becoming. She drove back on a Friday. Not because she missed him, but because she was ready to look him in the eye and choose what came next. When she arrived, he was cooking. A dish she liked, spaghetti with lemon zest and garlic oil. He looked surprised to see her, but not hopeful, not desperate. He looked patient. "How was the lake?" he asked. "Quiet." He nodded. She walked to the kitchen island and leaned on it, then said the words neither of them expected. "I want to rebuild." His eyes flickered. "You do?" But under new terms, he nodded slowly. "Anything. Counseling. Family dinners. CO parenting with Salora present." Agreed. "And no more disappearing to handle guilt in private." "Yes. No more perfect performance. If you're hurting, say so. If you feel ashamed, bring it to me." His voice cracked. "Okay." She paused, then added, "And I won't promise to stay forever, but I'll promise to be honest while I'm here." Draven stepped around the island, stopped inches in front of her. "I'll take it, all of it, on your terms. No performance." She studied him. Not the man she married, the man he was becoming. "I'll stay in the guest room for now," she said. He nodded. For now. That night, in 2 separate rooms, they both slept for the first time in weeks. Not deeply, but without fear, because the truth was finally in the room with them, and neither of them had run from it. The morning after Vianelle moved into the guest room, the silence in the condo had a different shape. It wasn't heavy or hostile. It was careful, like 2 people walking barefoot on a floor full of broken glass. She rose at 6:30 a.m., just like always, but this time she didn't make his coffee. She didn't ask if he had a call. She didn't place a protein bar by his keys the way she used to. She moved in rhythm, but not with him. Her rhythm was hers now. Draven came out of the bedroom slower than usual, already dressed, shirt pressed, hair damp from a shower. He paused when he saw her at the kitchen table, sipping tea in a grey sweatshirt and joggers. She didn't look up from her laptop. "I'll be at the office late," he said. She nodded once. "Okay." "No, be safe." "No, don't work too hard." "Just okay." They moved around each other like ghosts sharing space, not enemies, but no longer partners either. Just 2 people orbiting the wreckage of something that had once been sacred. At work, Vianelle found herself drifting during client meetings, not because she was distracted by pain, but because she didn't feel connected to any version of her life anymore. She wasn't the devoted wife. She wasn't the naive believer. She wasn't even sure if she was a victim. What she was now was awake, fully, uncomfortably, and she wasn't ready to numb that. When she got home that evening, Draven wasn't there. The lights were off. His laptop was open on the counter, and a sticky note beside it read, "Dinner's in the oven. I won't wait up. D." She stood in the kitchen and read it 3 times. Not because she missed him, but because the small act of cooking, his love language, wasn't something she expected. She opened the oven. Pasta al limone, her favorite. She ate alone, in silence, and still didn't text him. By day 4, the rhythm had become muscle memory. Separate rooms, shared hallway, neutral tones, no touch. He'd wake up earlier now. She'd stay in bed longer. They'd cross paths, nod, speak politely, but never deeply. And that, somehow, stung more than any fight, because they were no longer loud with pain. They were just drifting. On Saturday morning, she walked past the bathroom and caught a glimpse of his phone screen left face up on the counter. A text thread. From Salora. She froze. The message preview said, "He's been asking if she's coming again this weekend." Vianelle's heart clenched. Not from jealousy, but from guilt. Milo. She hadn't called, hadn't followed up, hadn't thought about what he must have felt, watching a woman show up in his home, and then vanish again. She walked out of the bathroom and sat on the couch, opened her phone, typed out a message to Salora. "Tell him I'll come tomorrow afternoon. If that's okay." Salora replied in under a minute. Yes. That would mean a lot to him. Vianelle typed a second message, then deleted it, then typed again. "Thank you for not making this harder than it already is." Salora didn't respond right away. Then, "You're doing more than I ever expected. And better than most women would." The next day, Vianelle arrived just after 1 p.m. Same porch, same door, same tricycle on the grass. But when Milo opened the door this time, he smiled. "You came back again." Vianelle knelt down. "I did." He held up a picture, a crayon drawing. "This is you," he said, proudly pointing to a curly-haired figure beside a taller one labeled Dad. She blinked. "Is that me with Daddy?" Milo nodded. "And that's Mama too. We were all at the beach. I made it up." She looked at the picture. A fantasy, but one he wanted so badly he drew it like it had already happened. Her chest tightened. Inside, Salora gave a small wave from the kitchen. Vianelle waved back. They didn't speak much, but they didn't need to anymore. Their peace wasn't perfect, but it was functional. She spent 2 hours playing games with Milo, asked him about his favorite show, let him read her a picture book, even though he skipped every 3rd word. When she got up to leave, he hugged her without being told. "You smell like pancakes," he said. She laughed, tears threatening. "You smell like crayons and mischief." He grinned. "That's what Mama says too." She got into her car, took one breath, and stared at the steering wheel. Not because she was unsure, but because she was certain now. Her love for Draven was still there, buried, wounded, not yet healed, but real. And her love for Milo? It was starting to grow roots. When she got home, Draven was in the kitchen again, dicing vegetables. She walked in and dropped her keys quietly. "I saw him today," she said. He paused, looked at her, and he made me a picture. "We were all at the beach." Draven swallowed. She stepped closer. "He wants a family, one we never promised, but that he feels anyway." "I know. I'm not ready to give him that. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I'm not walking away from him either." Draven nodded. "What about me?" he asked. "Are you walking away from me?" She didn't answer, but she didn't walk away. And sometimes, that's the loudest answer of all. The next morning, Vianelle stood at the window, wrapped in her robe, holding her tea without sipping. Outside, the city moved, dogs being walked, cars pulling out, neighbors rushing to work. But inside, her world was in limbo. Draven walked out of the bedroom in his usual pressed shirt, but he paused when he saw her by the window. "You okay?" She didn't turn. "I don't know." He stepped a little closer, leaving space between them. "Did Milo ask anything else?" She nodded. "He asked if I could visit him on his birthday." Draven's brows lifted slightly. "When is it?" "Next Saturday." A beat passed. "Would you go?" he asked carefully. She finally turned to face him. "I already told him yes." He exhaled softly. Not relief, not joy, just breath. "Thank you." Later that evening, Vianelle called her sister. She hadn't told her anything until now. She needed someone removed from the situation, someone who didn't see Draven as perfect. When her sister answered, her voice was casual. "Hey, stranger. Did you fall off the planet?" "I found out Draven has a child." Silence. Then, "With you?" "No. With someone I used to know. A long time ago." Another pause. "You okay?" "I don't know," she said. "But I'm not falling apart. Do you still love him?" Vianelle sat down on the edge of the couch. "Yes. But it's not blind anymore." Her sister's voice softened. "What do you want?" "I want peace. But I also want to see the boy again." "That's not a small thing, Vi." "I know. Does he know who you are?" "No. I don't think Salora wants him to." "Not yet. Do you?" Vianelle didn't answer right away. Then, "I want him to know I'm not walking in and out for fun." Later that night, Draven was in the living room reading through property reports. She walked in slowly and stood near the door. "I want to see the boy again," she said. He looked up. "I don't want to show up only when it's convenient. If I'm going to keep stepping in, I need to show up with intention." Draven closed the folder in his hand. "You don't need my permission. I'm not asking for it. I'm telling you this because I don't want secrets. Not anymore." He stood and walked to her, stopped a few feet away. "I'll talk to Salora about how to bring him into it gently, if you want to be part of his life more regularly." Vianelle looked him in the eye. He already drew me into it, whether I was ready or not. Draven lowered his gaze. "I don't deserve this version of you." She didn't say, "I know." She didn't say good. She just stood still, and for once, let him sit with his regret in silence. 2 days later, Salora texted her directly. "He keeps asking if you'll come early for his birthday." I told him maybe. "Do you want to?" Vianelle replied, "Yes. I'll be there by 10 a.m. I'd like to help set up." "Thank you." He'll be excited. "Thank you for letting me try." That Saturday, she arrived with a gift bag, a small handmade card, and a nervous heart. She wore simple jeans and a soft blue sweater. She didn't want to look put together. She wanted to look familiar. Milo opened the door with frosting on his cheek. "You came early." She smiled. "I promised, didn't I?" He threw his arms around her waist. "I saved you a cupcake already." Salora walked into view, holding a stack of paper plates. "Glad you made it," she said. Vianel nodded. "Anything I can do to help?" Decorations still need fixing, so she helped, hung streamers, poured juice boxes, laughed when Milo tried to climb the table, helped clean a spill, tied balloons, and didn't once feel like she was acting. She was just there. When Draven arrived around noon, she was sitting on the floor with Milo and 2 other kids, helping build a Lego spaceship. He paused in the doorway. She looked up. They exchanged a glance. Not romantic, not cold, but layered, shared. He mouthed, "Thank you." She mouthed later. When the guests left and the house calmed, Milo asked if she could read him a birthday book before his nap. Salora didn't hesitate. Vianel followed him into the small room. He crawled under the covers and held out the book. She read softly, slowly, letting her voice rise and fall with the rhythm of the story. At the end, he said, "Can you come back next weekend too?" She ran her fingers gently through his curls. "I'll try. Promise?" She hesitated, then looked into his eyes. "Not yet, but I'm trying to be someone who only makes promises when she knows she can keep them." He nodded, drowsy. "Okay." As she stood up, Salora was leaning in the doorway. "He sleeps easier when you read to him." Vianel raised an eyebrow. Salora added, "That's not a compliment. It's an observation. I'll take it anyway." They smiled. A small one, but real. On the drive home, Vianel didn't feel exhausted. She felt anchored, and that's when she realized healing didn't come from forgetting. It came from showing up, even when your heart wasn't sure how. It had been 2 weeks since Milo's birthday, 2 weeks of space, 2 weeks of polite nods with Draven, 2 weeks of her phone vibrating once every few days with messages from Salora that said things like, "He asked about you again today. He drew a picture of you holding his book. He wanted to know if you have your own house." It was strange, being pulled deeper into a child's world that she didn't help bring into the world. Stranger still, she didn't feel lost in it. She felt invited, and that meant something. Draven noticed it too. She didn't talk about Milo in front of him, didn't share the drawings or repeat the cute quotes, but he saw her texting more often, smiling at her screen, and he knew she wasn't smiling at him, and for once, he didn't feel jealous. He felt grateful, because the child he never properly introduced was now being seen, gently, tenderly, without bitterness, by the woman he had wronged the most. On a rainy Thursday afternoon, Vianel left work early. She had a headache, and the silence in the office was too loud. On her way home, she took a left instead of a right. No warning, no plan. She pulled up to Salora's driveway and sat in the car for a moment. Then she texted, "Is it okay if I stop in? I won't stay long." Salora replied, "Yes. He's building a blanket fort in the living room. Come on in." When she walked in, Milo lit up like a light bulb. "V, you came on a Thursday." She laughed. "I needed a break from boring grown-up things." He grinned and dragged her by the hand to the blanket fort. Salora handed her a mug of tea without a word, then returned to a stack of bills at the table. They had a rhythm now, the unspoken kind that didn't require constant explaining. Milo's fort had a doorway made from a bathrobe and a side entrance draped with a Spider-Man towel. Inside, he had pillows, 2 flashlights, and a small collection of cracker crumbs. Vianel crawled inside. "What are we doing in here?" she asked. "We're hiding from the tickle monster," he whispered dramatically. She gasped. "Where was it last seen?" "By the kitchen. But it left a trail of jelly." She looked around. "Well, I didn't bring any weapons." He handed her a toy sword made from a cardboard tube. They stayed in that fort for almost an hour, reading, whispering, tickling, laughing. He climbed into her lap like he'd always belonged there. And when he fell asleep halfway through a book, she didn't move. She just stared at the back of his small head and felt something bloom that she didn't have a name for. It wasn't replacement love. It wasn't guilt-driven affection. It was something purer, like forgiveness in motion. Salora peeked in quietly and whispered, "You can lay him on the couch if you need to go." Vianelle nodded, but didn't move. Salora watched her a beat longer, then stepped away again. When she finally got home later that evening, Draven was in the kitchen again, chopping vegetables. He looked up, startled. "You're home late." "I was with Milo." He didn't nod or smile, just placed the knife down. "I'm glad," he said. She walked past him to set her bag down, then paused. "I want to take him to the science center next weekend." He looked up, surprised. "You do?" "I already asked Salora. She said it's fine. Do you want me to come?" She shook her head. "Not this time." That hurt, but he accepted it. "Okay." The next weekend, she picked Milo up at noon. He came running out with a backpack and 2 sandwiches wrapped in foil. Salora handed her a small envelope, just in case he gets carsick. "Got it," Vianelle smiled. "Do I get to pick the music?" Milo asked. "Absolutely not," she teased. He pouted. "You're like my mom." She laughed as she buckled him in. That's not the worst thing to be. At the science center, they walked hand in hand past dinosaur bones and stargazing exhibits. Milo asked a million questions, pointed at everything, wanted to touch it all. And Vianelle, in her calm and steady way, kept up. She wasn't performative. She wasn't trying to win his love. She was just there, steady, and Milo didn't let go of her hand even once. In the planetarium, as the lights dimmed and stars danced across the dome, he whispered, "Do you live with my daddy?" She stiffened. "Yes." "Is he your boyfriend?" She smiled sadly. "He's my husband." He went quiet for a moment. Then, "Why don't you stay all the time at our house?" She paused, then leaned in. "Because sometimes grown-ups have to fix things, and fixing takes space." He nodded. "Fixing is hard." "Yes," she said softly. "It is." Back home, as she walked him to the porch, he looked up at her. "Do you think I'll see you next week?" "I hope so." "I hope too." He reached up and hugged her tight, and something in her cracked a little more open. Something raw, something whole. She didn't cry until she got back to her car, not from sadness, but from how unexpected love could be, and how quiet it sometimes arrived. Vianelle didn't bring up the science center visit when she got home. She didn't show Draven the pictures Milo made her take, of him standing next to the T-Rex model, of them both, under a glowing replica moon, of the star projector room where he whispered, "This is the quietest quiet ever." But Draven didn't ask either. He simply looked at her when she entered, nodded once, and returned to slicing lemons in the kitchen. That night, as they got ready for bed in their separate rooms, she paused in the hallway and called out softly, "He asked if I was your girlfriend." Draven appeared in his doorway. "He did?" "I told him, you're my husband." He blinked. "What did he say?" "He asked why I don't live at his house." Draven ran a hand down his face. "I don't know how to talk to him about all this. He's just a kid, and yet he sees everything," she said quietly. She walked into her room, leaving the door open behind her for the first time in weeks. On Monday, a package arrived with Milo's name on it. Draven placed it on the counter. "From who?" Vianelle asked. Salora had texted him earlier. He saw something in a commercial, drew it, said, "Maybe V would like this." "So, we made a shirt." Vianelle opened it carefully. Inside was a navy blue t-shirt, child-sized, but with a drawing across the front, stick figures, under a big starry sky, labeled in Milo's handwriting, "Me and V and the moon." Vianelle pressed the shirt to her chest. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Draven stepped beside her, glanced at the drawing. "Milo loves big," he said softly, "even when he doesn't understand what love costs." She folded the shirt and set it gently on the counter. "He's not a mistake," she said quietly. Draven turned toward her. "I never said he was." "No," she said, looking him dead in the eyes. But the way you handled his existence, the silence, the hiding, the way you kept him, locked in one part of your life like a transaction, that made it feel like he was... Draven's face broke. I was wrong, he said. Not just wrong. You were afraid. He didn't deny it. I didn't want to lose you. You lost something worse, she said. You lost the chance to be fully known. You let me build a life with half of you. He sat down slowly. I didn't know how to carry both truths at once. Then you weren't ready for marriage, she said. Because love isn't about keeping what's convenient. It's about standing in the mess and saying, here, all of me, even this. They sat in silence for a long time. Eventually he said, I want to start showing up differently. For him? She asked. For him. For you. For myself. She looked at him, her voice steady. Then be more than a provider. Be present. Be honest. Be real. I don't know how. Start by saying that to him. That Friday, Draven took the afternoon off and asked Salora if he could pick Milo up alone. She agreed, though cautiously. He brought his son to a quiet diner they'd visited once before. Milo didn't notice anything different at first, until his dad didn't check his phone, didn't rush the meal, didn't glance at the door like he wanted to be somewhere else. Are you going to tell me stuff today? Milo asked, halfway through his burger. Draven blinked. What do you mean? Mom said you're trying to talk more. He smiled faintly. I am. Are you scared? Draven nodded. Sometimes. Milo reached over and touched his arm. That's okay. I get scared too. Draven stared at him, and something inside his chest cracked, not from guilt, but from the sudden, overwhelming weight of being seen by a child he'd never fully shown himself to. Later that night, Vionel opened the front door when Draven returned. He looked tired, but peaceful. He asked if I get scared, Draven said, setting Milo's backpack down. And I told him the truth. What truth? That I didn't know how to be his dad before. She tilted her head slightly. And now, I'm learning. Slowly. Honestly. And I told him I want to show up more. She exhaled. Good. He stepped closer. And I told him I want to keep showing up for you too. Not with flowers, not with speeches, just with presence. She met his eyes. I'll believe it when I see it. That weekend, Vionel took Milo to the park. They played hide and seek, ate popsicles, and talked about nothing. And at one point, while resting on the grass, Milo looked up and said, I'm glad you're not scared of me. She turned her head. Why would I be? 'Cause sometimes people leave when they find out about me. Mom said it's 'cause I was a surprise. She swallowed. You were the kind of surprise that makes people better, Milo. Back home, she tucked the shirt he'd sent into a drawer, not because she was collecting memories, but because it already felt like a part of her. And in her heart, something shifted. Milo wasn't someone she was tolerating. He wasn't someone she was sacrificing for. He was becoming family. And Draven? He wasn't healed, but he was showing up in the small moments. And sometimes, that's where forgiveness begins. The day started with rain. Not heavy or loud, just enough to blur the windows and slow down the city. Vionel stood by the kitchen counter, tracing the rim of her teacup with one finger. Her suitcase sat by the door, small, black, and already packed. Draven leaned against the opposite counter, arms folded. You're sure you want to go alone? He asked, not looking at her. I'm not going to get away from you, she replied. I'm going to remember who I was before us. He nodded, quietly. She grabbed her keys and turned toward the door. 3 days, she said. I'll call if anything changes. She drove east toward the lake house she hadn't visited since before the wedding. A quiet place tucked between tall trees and a shoreline that didn't need filters to be beautiful. The last time she was here, she was painting. The world was wide, and her heart was full. Draven had just proposed. She remembered sitting by the dock, sketching ring ideas on napkins, thinking, this man sees me. Now, she wondered how much of her he'd never really seen at all. She arrived just before noon. The house smelled the same, pine wood, dust and lake air. She opened the windows, lit the old cinnamon candle she left behind, and made tea. No music, no distractions, just space. That first night, she sat by the fire and pulled out an old leather journal. She flipped through pages of goals, affirmations, memories she'd once sworn she'd never lose. Her handwriting looked younger, braver, a little more selfish in a good way. Before she'd become someone who bent herself to fit another person's fear, one page stopped her cold. I want love that's loud in its honesty, even if it's messy. I want the kind of truth that makes me uncomfortable, but never confused. She closed the journal slowly, then sat there, letting the fire crackle around the silence. The next day, she walked the trail behind the lake. The leaves were changing, red and gold like they'd been kissed by goodbye. Each step felt like she was peeling off layers, not to become someone new, but to remember someone old, the woman who once said no without guilt, the woman who didn't explain herself to be understood, the woman who didn't build her worth around how much she could endure. Back at the cabin, she stood at the mirror and looked at herself, bare face, damp hair, oversized sweater. No makeup, no mask, just her. She whispered, "You're still here." And for the first time in a long time, she believed it. That evening, her phone buzzed. A photo from Salora. Milo, asleep with the book she'd left behind on his chest. No text, just the image. It made her eyes sting, not from pain, from belonging. Then, one more message. From Draven. "I'm not asking you to forgive me today, but I'm starting therapy Monday, and I'm telling Milo the truth soon. No filters, no hiding. Just real." She didn't reply. She didn't have to. Some messages speak louder when you sit with them in silence. That night, she wrote something in her journal for the first time in a year. "I am still worthy of love that doesn't ask me to shrink to fit it." Vienel returned on a Tuesday. No announcement, no countdown, just keys in the door and soft footsteps down the hall. Draven looked up from the couch where he sat reading, a real book this time, not a spreadsheet, not a screen. He stood, uncertain. "How was the lake?" he asked. "Necessary," she replied, setting her keys in the dish by the door. He waited, hoping for more. She gave him a small glance. "I needed to remember who I was before this became the only version of me." He nodded, stepping closer. "And who is that?" "A woman who was never broken. Just overlooked." He didn't try to hug her, didn't ask to talk right then. Instead, he gestured toward the kitchen. "I made your favorite," he said. "You don't have to eat it, but I wanted you to know, I remember." She followed him in, quietly. The table was set for two, mismatched placemats, a glass of wine waiting. Simple, thoughtful, but not performative. She sat, not because she'd decided to forgive him, but because she wasn't going to let fear keep making decisions in her life. They ate in silence for a few minutes before he finally spoke. "I had my first session yesterday." She looked up. "Therapy." He nodded. "It was hard, but it didn't kill me." She waited. He added, "She asked me what I was most afraid of." "And what did you say?" "That you'd leave once you saw the whole of me. That if I gave you the truth, you'd walk." She set her fork down gently. "You thought love meant only showing the clean parts." He looked at her. Guilty. "Yes." She leaned back in her chair, eyes tired but clear. "Well, now you've shown me everything, and I'm still here." He blinked. But she wasn't done. She stood, walked to the window, arms crossed. "I was more than what you feared, Draven. I was capable of holding truth. I was capable of loving you through pain. But you didn't give me the chance." His voice cracked. "I didn't think you'd want it." She turned to face him. "You weren't supposed to decide for me. That's the part you never understood." He lowered his head. "You were building a life with me while building a secret beside it. That's not marriage. That's control." "I know," he said. "No, you understand. That's different than knowing. But I don't need an apology tonight. I need a boundary." He swallowed. "Tell me." She stepped closer. If this continues, if we continue, it won't be on the foundation of the past. We start over. No titles, no assumptions, no expecting me to play wife while you unlearn your shame. He nodded slowly. I accept that. You're not trying to win me, she said. You're trying to meet me. For real this time. I want that more than anything. They stood in the quiet again, a space between them that had once held betrayal, now holding something new. Uncertainty, but also choice. Later that night, she opened her old planner and tore out the page where she'd written their anniversary date in silver ink. She folded it once, then tucked it behind a new blank sheet. She wasn't erasing the past. She was giving herself permission to rewrite what came next. In her guest room, she unpacked her bag, set her new journal on the nightstand, lit a single candle, and whispered aloud, I stayed. But not for him. For me. Have you ever realized you were more than someone's fear? Comment I stayed for me. Like, subscribe, and prepare for Chapter 7, where the new rules of love get tested. The following Sunday, Vienel asked Draven to meet her at the park. Not the one near their home. The other one. The one with the wooden bench beneath the willow tree where he first told her he wanted to marry her. He arrived 5 minutes early. She arrived exactly on time. No makeup, no jewelry, just soft jeans and a loose sweater the color of mist. They sat in silence for a moment. A jogger passed. A dog barked. The world moved on while their lives paused on this bench. Then Vienel spoke. I'm not angry anymore. Draven turned to her, hopeful. But I'm still not sure if I respect you. He froze. She continued. Love without respect is unstable. You taught me that. Draven exhaled slowly. I know I cost us something. You didn't just cost us. You cost me. My trust, my peace, my ability to believe what I saw. I'm not trying to defend it. Good, she said. Because you can't. He nodded. She looked straight ahead, watching a father toss a frisbee to his daughter. I'm here because I don't want to spend the next 5 years surviving our marriage. I want to decide if it still exists. Draven's voice was low. What do you need from me? She turned now, fully. Everything you never gave me before. Silence again. A bird landed on the backrest, twitched, flew away. Then she laid it out, calmly, clearly. No more sleeping in the same house if we're not walking the same road. Okay, no more emotional fog. If you're not ready to speak, don't pretend to be ready to love. Okay. No more showing up in Milo's life halfway. You step up or you step aside. Understood. No more hoping time will soften the damage. You clean up what you broke, or I leave for good. Draven swallowed hard. You're not giving me conditions. You're giving me dignity. She blinked at him. That surprised her, but he meant it. She stood. He followed. I'll move back into the bedroom. But this is not us picking up where we left off. I know. This is us deciding if there's still something worth rebuilding. I want to rebuild it, he said. But I won't ask you to rush. You don't get to ask for anything right now, she said, soft but firm. You just get to show up, fully, every day. Until showing up becomes your habit, not your apology. He nodded. They stood there a second longer. Then, as she turned to leave, he said, Thank you for not giving up on me. She paused and replied without turning around, I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for me. Then she walked away. The table was set for 4. Nothing fancy, no candles, just placemats, a basket of bread and mismatched dishes. Salora had made a simple meal, chicken and rice with roasted vegetables. Milo was already sitting on a booster seat, humming to himself and drawing smiley faces in the condensation on his water glass. Draven and Vienel arrived together, not holding hands, not pretending, just walking side by side, both carrying their own silence. Vienel had told Salora over text, I'm not coming as a guest, I'm coming as someone who needs to know where we all stand. Salora replied, Then let's find out together. Hi, V. Milo grinned as soon as he saw her. She knelt beside him. Hi, birthday boy. Did you save me a good seat? He pointed next to him. Right here. You can cut my chicken. Mom said I'm not allowed to use the sharp knife. Mom's right, she smiled. Salora stood by the counter, watching. Not with jealousy, not even with guardedness, but with caution, as if she didn't want to hope too fast. Dinner started with small talk. Milo shared that he'd made a robot from juice boxes. Draven added that work was shifting, but didn't explain more. Vienel stayed quiet for most of it, letting the room speak before she did. Salora finally broke the adult silence. So, she said, passing the vegetables, how are we doing this? Draven looked up. You mean? She nodded at both of them. The family dynamic, Milo's future. What this means? Vienel gently wiped Milo's mouth, and then looked at her. We're starting over, with structure, no blurred lines. Salora leaned back in her chair. Good, because he's starting to ask deeper questions. Like what? Draven asked. Like if you and V are going to have kids, or if he can have two moms, or why he only sees one of you at a time. Draven swallowed. He asked that. Kids notice everything, Salora said. Even the quiet things. Vienel nodded. Then we stop hiding. Draven turned to Salora. I want to start taking him on weekends, not just visits, full overnights. Salora didn't flinch. He's been asking to sleep at your place, Vienel added. Then he needs a room, not a couch, not a corner. A real space that belongs to him. I'll build it, Draven said. You'll both design it, Salora added, motioning to Vienel. He loves her more than he knows how to say. There was a moment of quiet understanding. Something was shifting. After dinner, Milo showed them his robot. Vienel praised it like it was a gallery piece. Salora offered coffee. Draven declined. The four of them moved through the house like parts of something fragile, but no longer broken. On the way home, Draven drove, while Vienel stared out the window. I didn't expect tonight to feel like a family, he said. It wasn't a family, she replied. He glanced at her. It was four people choosing to stop lying, she said. That's not the same, but it's close. Back at the condo, she walked to the guest room, then paused in the hallway. I'll help design Milo's room, she said. But not for you, for him. Draven nodded. I know. I'm not building a family. I'm building clarity. And she closed her door without waiting for a response. Inside her room, she sat at her journal and wrote, Healing is not returning, it's redefining. Saturday came with no rush, no one running late, no one filling silence with too many words. Draven picked Milo up in the morning. They stopped for pancakes and then headed home. This time, not to just visit. This time, Milo had a room. Vienel had spent the week helping design it. She didn't tell anyone, not even Draven, that she paid for the wallpaper herself. The walls were soft grey, with glow-in-the-dark stars that she knew would only show once the lights were out. She'd chosen the bedding, navy with little rocket ships, and set a bin of books right beside his bed. When Milo saw it, he froze in the doorway. This is mine? Draven nodded. All yours, kiddo. Milo walked in slowly, touching everything like it might disappear. Vienel stood in the hallway, watching him without a word. He turned to her with wide eyes. Did you help? She smiled. A little. He ran across the room and hugged her around the waist. I love it. She ruffled his hair. Then, I love it too. That night, after dinner and games and a bubble bath that flooded the hallway, Milo asked Vienel to read him a bedtime story. She hesitated, then looked to Draven. He nodded. It's okay. So she followed Milo into his new room. He picked a book about a bear who lost its way home. Halfway through, he stopped her. Can I ask you something? Of course. If I call you something, but it's not your real name. Is that bad? She looked at him. Depends. What is it? He blinked. Mama, V. Her heart cracked open and stitched itself back together in one breath. You can call me that if you want to, she said softly. But you're not my mom. No, but I care about you like someone who wants to protect you. He leaned against her side. That's good enough. She finished the book with her voice steady, but her soul undone. When he fell asleep, still curled beside her, Draven peeked into the room. He didn't speak, just watched for a moment, then mouthed, "Thank you." She mouthed back, "Don't ruin it." He nodded. She tucked Milo in, turned off the lights and stepped out. In the hallway, Draven waited, unsure. "Do you want a glass of wine?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, I'll just sit with you, then." They walked into the living room and sat on opposite sides of the couch. "I didn't expect him to say that," she whispered. "I did," Draven replied. "You're showing him something no one ever did for me. Safe love." She looked at him. "It's not just for him." "I know." They sat in the soft quiet of that moment, not as husband and wife, not as lovers, but as people who had both failed and kept showing up anyway. And in that stillness, something was rebuilt. Not romance, not promises, but presence. And sometimes presence is the first real step toward redemption. The next morning, the front door buzzed just after 10. Salora stood outside, holding a small paper bag. "Extra muffins from the cafe," she said. "He always gets one on Sundays." Vienel opened the door wider. "He's still sleeping." Salora nodded. "I figured. He stays up longer when he's with you." There was no tension in her voice, no accusation, only fact. Inside, they sat at the kitchen island. Vienel poured 2 mugs of coffee. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. It was earned. They had both seen too much of each other's lives to pretend now. Salora finally spoke. "I watched him go to sleep last night." "Draven?" "No. Milo. I peeked through the window when I dropped his toy off." Vienel waited. "He looked safe," Salora added. "Like he belonged there." "He does. You know, for years I told myself he didn't need more than me." Vienel glanced up. Salora sighed. "But I was wrong. He needs more than one person loving him. He needs the truth about where he comes from, who's showing up for him, and he needs to know it's okay to love everyone in his life, without guilt." Vienel nodded. "I don't want to replace you." "I know that now." Salora looked her straight in the eye. "But I want to say it out loud," Vienel continued, "because we never got that chance in college." Salora gave a half smile. "You mean when I left you without an explanation?" Vienel returned it. "And I married the man you once cried about in the dark." They both chuckled quietly, not from joy, from recognition. Salora set down her mug. "He told me he's doing therapy." "He told me too," Vienel said. "But I don't expect change until I see it." "That's fair." They paused again. Then Salora leaned forward slightly. "You were always steadier than me." "That didn't make me stronger," Vienel replied. "Still," Salora said, "you're the reason Milo has more than a weekend dad, and I never thought I'd thank you for anything. But here we are." Vienel looked her in the eye. "Thank you for letting me in. You didn't have to." "I know," Salora said, "but we've both lost too much to keep holding on to territory that should be shared." A soft voice called from the hallway. "V?" They both turned. Milo appeared in his pajama set, rubbing his eyes. "Hi, sweetheart," Salora said softly. He smiled and ran to her. "You brought muffins." "I did. V doesn't know which kind I like." Vienel smirked. "That's true. Teach me." Milo grinned proudly. "Blueberry." "With the sugar sprinkles." Salora raised an eyebrow at Vienel. "You've been warned." The three of them sat on the floor with napkins and juice boxes. No tension, no forced conversation, just a child in the middle, laughing about how sticky his hands were. It didn't feel like a broken family. It felt like a new one. Later, as Salora got ready to leave, she paused at the door. "He calls you Mama V now." Vienel nodded. "He asked first." Salora's eyes softened. "That's how I know it's real." She glanced back at Milo, who was showing Draven how to build a robot from cereal boxes. "He's got the best parts of both of us," she said. "And the chance to grow up with all of us," Vienel added. Salora nodded. "That's more than we had." The room had no windows. Just soft light, clean air, and silence that waited to be broken. Draven sat stiffly on the couch. The therapist crossed one leg over the other and spoke gently. Why now? He stared at the wall for a few seconds. Because I can't afford to lose her. Or him. Vienel? He nodded. And Milo. The therapist waited. Draven rubbed the back of his neck. When Vienel found out about Milo, I thought she'd burn it all down. Scream. Leave. But she didn't. What did she do? She stayed in the room. She listened. She asked questions I didn't even ask myself. Did that surprise you? Yes, because I would have deserved it if she didn't. The therapist paused. What's the hardest part to say out loud? Draven swallowed hard. His voice dropped. I lied. For years. Not because I hated Salora or wanted two families, but because I didn't know how to be honest without ruining someone. He looked down at his hands. I thought I was protecting them, but I was protecting myself from shame. The therapist scribbled a note. You mentioned shame. Tell me more. Draven let out a breath. My father had 4 kids. 3 different women. None of them knew about each other. He'd pop in, smile, drop off a check, then disappear for weeks. Did you ever ask him why? I did, once, and he told me, a man gives what he can. That was his reason. The therapist waited. Draven looked up. But I don't want to give what I can. I want to give what's needed. And what's needed is honesty. A long pause. Have you told Vienel that? Draven shook his head. I've said the words, but I haven't earned them yet. The therapist leaned forward. Draven, what would you tell Milo one day when he asks about how this happened? He froze, then whispered, I'd say I was selfish. I'd say I should have told the truth earlier, but I'd also say, love isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like sitting through shame, staying, fixing. His eyes turned red. I'd tell him I didn't walk away, that I stayed, and I worked for every piece of his trust. The therapist smiled gently. You're starting. Draven nodded. I have a long way to go. That night, Vienel opened the front door and found him sitting on the steps. A little notebook rested on his lap. She sat beside him, not asking questions. He handed her the book. I wrote down what I said to the therapist, in case I forget. She looked at the first page. I lied. I hid. I hurt. But I also loved, and I still do. Vienel closed the notebook and looked at him. You don't have to be perfect. He nodded slowly. But I want to be consistent. Start there. Inside, Milo had fallen asleep on the couch with a drawing in his hand. Vienel picked it up. It was 3 stick figures holding hands. One said, Mom. One said, Dad. The third said, Mama V. She smiled. Draven stood behind her, reading it too. He kissed her shoulder. Soft. No promises. Just presence. I'm learning, he whispered. I know, she replied. So am I. Milo's kindergarten teacher had asked them to attend family day. Draven assumed it would be awkward. Vienel wasn't Milo's biological mom. Salora wasn't coming. And Milo, he just wanted everyone to get along. You don't have to come if it's weird, he told her the night before. Vienel folded the little blue shirt Milo had picked out for the next day. I'll come, she said simply. Why? She looked up. Because he asked. The next morning, Milo sat in the back seat between them, holding their hands. I hope they don't call you my stepmom. You're not that, he said innocently. Vienel smiled. What am I then? Milo shrugged. Just mine. She kissed the top of his head. I like that. They arrived at the school gym filled with streamers and tables. Other kids had parents on both sides, couples with matching sweatshirts, some taking videos. Draven stiffened at the sight of them. He wondered what they'd whisper, how they'd look at him, at her. But Milo pulled him forward. Let's play the pancake game. Vienel leaned in. Pancake game? Draven nodded. Let's find out. As they moved from station to station, painting paper hats and racing with spoons, it stopped mattering how people looked at them. Milo laughed. Vienel laughed. Draven relaxed. For a moment, they weren't a scandal. They were just family. One teacher approached gently. "You're Vianelle, right?" she asked with a warm tone. Vianelle nodded. "I just wanted to say, Milo talks about you like you're made of stars." She blinked. "Sometimes we forget kids see everything." Vianelle looked over to where Milo was dancing with a paper crown. "I forget too," she whispered. After the event, back in the car, Milo knocked out in the back seat. Vianelle stared out the window. "I saw the way you looked around," she said. Draven didn't deny it. It's hard not to expect judgment, but no one threw rocks. He laughed gently. "No, they didn't." Back at the house, she found a folded note on the kitchen counter. It was from Salora. "Thank you for not rejecting him. Thank you for not humiliating me. I don't know what to be yet, but I know what I'm not, ready. You have every right to walk away, but you didn't. And I hope you keep choosing what's right over what's easy." Vianelle tucked it into her drawer beside old photographs and Milo's first crayon scribbles. She didn't reply. Not yet. That evening, Draven brought 2 glasses of tea to the porch. Vianelle was curled up in a blanket, reading. He handed her one. She wrote. Vianelle nodded. "She's trying. I think we all are," he said. She glanced at him. "What are you most afraid of?" He didn't hesitate. "That one day, Milo will think I'm a coward." "You're not," she said. "You're just late." He looked up. "Can I ask you something unfair?" She raised a brow. "Try me. If we'd met before Salora, before all the damage, would you have married me?" She took a sip, then leaned her head against the back of the chair. "I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But we didn't meet before. We met now. In this mess. And we're still here." He exhaled slowly. "That's not a no," she smirked. "It's not a yes either." He leaned in and kissed her knuckles. "I'll work toward a yes." Inside, Milo stirred, rolled over in bed, and whispered, "Night, Mama V." She heard it from the porch and froze. Draven did too. Neither said anything for a while. She didn't cry, but her eyes glistened with something deeper. Love without permission, family without labels. The envelope wasn't sealed. It sat on the corner of Milo's toy chest with one word on the front. For 5th. Vianelle stood frozen in Milo's room, unsure if she had the right to pick it up. But the handwriting was unmistakable. Salora. She opened it. "Vianelle, I once told Draven that I never wanted to be a mother. It wasn't a cold thing to say. It was just honest. I knew I couldn't carry a child without feeling resentful. I tried to force myself to change, to become who I thought a wife and mother should be. But resentment always leaks. And it leaked onto Milo, onto you, onto everything. The first time I saw you with him, I hated how natural you looked. Like you were made for him. I hated that he noticed. But I watched, and I listened, and I stayed silent while you held everything together. And then I hated myself. You didn't steal anything from me. I gave it away, piece by piece. I'm leaving the city. I need to find something that I'm good at again, something that doesn't involve pretending. I know you might not forgive me, but maybe Milo will, someday. Tell him, I was wrong, but not unloving. I just didn't know how to love right. Salora." Vianelle folded the letter with careful hands. She didn't cry, but she sat there for a long time, still, quiet, letting it settle in her heart without forcing forgiveness. That evening, Draven noticed the change in her. Something wrong? She handed him the letter without a word. He read it twice, then said nothing at all. They sat together, the silence saying everything. Not about rage, not about blame, but about release. Days passed. Salora's number stopped working. Her office confirmed her resignation. Her apartment was vacated. No forwarding address, no fanfare. She was just gone. And, in her absence, the air became lighter. Milo asked about her once. Is she okay? Vianelle didn't lie. She's figuring things out. Is she coming back? I don't know. He nodded and went back to his toy trucks. Draven pulled her aside later. You handled that well. She's still his mother, Vionel said softly. Even if it doesn't look how people expect. That weekend, they took Milo to the botanical gardens. He pointed at a tree and said, "That one's you, Daddy. Strong." Then he pointed at a rose bush. "That's V. Soft and colorful." He thought for a moment, then pointed at a cactus. "That's Mommy. She's hard on the outside. But maybe there's water inside if you wait." Vionel blinked. Draven looked stunned. Milo just skipped ahead to the next fountain. That night, Vionel found herself in the kitchen, watching Draven rinse dishes. Milo had gone to bed early, knocked out from the day. She leaned against the counter. "You know what I'm afraid of?" she asked. Draven looked up. "Tell me that this won't last, that we're just filling in space, that one day I'll wake up and realize I was a pause in your story, not the turning point." Draven dried his hands and walked over. He took her face in both palms. "Look at me." She did. "You were never a pause. You were the rescue." His words cracked something in her chest. Slow, tender, certain. She touched his shirt near the collar. "Then don't let me go. Ever." "I won't," he said. And for the first time since everything unraveled, she believed it. Not because he said it like a vow, but because he meant it like a life. The next weekend felt different. Draven pulled up outside Vionel's place with a duffel bag, Milo in the back seat and 2 cups of cinnamon vanilla coffee. Hers, extra warm. No instructions needed anymore. He knew. "I was thinking," he said as she stepped into the car. "Let's take a drive. No timeline, no pressure." She raised an eyebrow. "You're trusting me with directions?" He smirked. "I'm trusting you with my life. Directions seem minor." They ended up in a small coastal town 2 hours from the city. Quiet streets, antique shops, a pier with kids fishing off the side and gulls circling overhead. Milo spotted a snow cone truck and took off running, already calling his flavor. Draven reached for her hand. No words, just warmth. They walked the pier like 2 people who hadn't broken, but had bent far enough to know what mattered now. Later that night, in the small cabin Draven booked on impulse, Vionel watched Milo sleep between worn cotton sheets. He had sugar-stained lips and 1 sock off. Draven leaned on the doorway. "He loves you," he said softly. "I love him back," she whispered. Then her eyes met his. "I love you too, but not the version everyone sees. I love the man who folded my coat when I was crying in a stairwell, who asked nothing, who watched everything." Draven's eyes didn't move. "Then I'm staying that man," he said. "Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." They sat in the silence of that cabin for a long time. Later, they lay side by side, not speaking, just letting their fingers brush, their breathing sink. No performance, no roles, just presence. 3 months later, Milo was accepted into a special prep program. Vionel signed the paperwork. Draven handled the donation. No one asked for a spotlight. Salora sent a postcard. A single sentence. "Tell him I'm learning how to be soft." Milo placed it on the fridge himself. "Mommy's trying." That was all he said. That was enough. Vionel started painting again. Small things at first. The edges of Milo's closet, the baseboards in the guest room, then full canvases, then commissions. Draven came home once to find her splattered in pale blue, hair tied back with one of Milo's socks. He laughed for the first time in weeks. "I'd marry you again," he said. She turned, brush in hand. "So do it," she said, eyes shining. The second wedding wasn't grand. 10 people. A backyard. Milo holding a camera too big for him. Draven's mother cried. Not from regret, but relief. Because this time, it wasn't perfect, it was right. In the final shot of their small wedding video, Milo leaned into the camera and said, "This time, love stayed." Which moment in this story touched your heart the most? Drop a comment. Like, share, and subscribe to keep stories like this alive. At Mr. Charles Stories, we believe love isn't about grand gestures. It's about the quiet ones, the ones that stay